Welcome to another episode of Books and Bites. Today, we're going to be looking at When Breath Becomes Air.
Oh, yeah. This is a really powerful one.
It is. It's by Paul Kalanithi.
Yes.
And have you read this one?
I have. This one really stuck with me. I think I read it like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I think a lot of people feel that way about this book. And it's a memoir.
Yes.
And he was a neurosurgeon. So very smart guy, obviously.
Obviously.
And and he was diagnosed with stage 4B lung cancer.
It's pretty devastating. I mean, you think about someone who, has dedicated their life to studying the human body and to healing, and then they're faced with this, terrible diagnosis. It's really something else.
Yeah, and it's structured in two parts. The first part is In Perfect Health I Begin.
Right.
And the second part is Ceasing to Breathe.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we're going to kind of go through both of these parts today.
Good. That's good.
And the first part, In Perfect Health I Begin, that's kind of his journey into medicine.
And then obviously the second part is, dealing with the diagnosis and everything that comes with that.
Right.
So, I mean, we have a lot to cover today, so why don't we just jump right in?
Okay, let's do it.
So, it's interesting with this one is that he didn't, go straight into medicine. He kind of had this, roundabout way of getting there.
Yeah, he was a really interesting guy. I mean, he actually, came from a high-achieving Indian American family.
Okay.
But he was really interested in literature and philosophy.
Really?
Yeah, he was, really into existentialism and authors like Albert Camus, T.S. Eliot, Walt Whitman.
Wow. So he had a lot of, deep thoughts going on.
He did.
Even before he, decided to go into medicine.
Yeah.
So what do you think it was that shifted him then from, literature and philosophy into medicine?
Well, it's interesting because his dad was a physician.
Okay.
So, maybe there was some influence there. But Paul was really fascinated with the brain.
He, really thought about it as the physical center of identity. And so that ultimately kind of, drew him into neuroscience and then medicine.
Okay. So, I mean, when you think about it, it's almost like he kind of combined his two interests.
In a way, yeah.
Because, the brain is kind of where our thoughts and our, our identity and everything comes from.
It is. It's this, this physical organ that somehow generates all of these intangible things.
Right. And so he's, studying philosophy and literature and all that. That's kind of like the intangible stuff.
Right.
And then he goes into medicine, and that's the tangible. Kind of like he, brought those two worlds together.
Yeah. I think that's a really great way to put it. He was really able to bridge those two worlds.
And he didn't just go to, any old school. He went to like all the best schools.
He did. I mean, he was obviously a brilliant guy. He got his undergraduate degrees in biology and English literature at Stanford. Then he went on to get a master's in the history and philosophy of science from Cambridge.
Oh, wow. Cambridge.
Yeah. It's a pretty prestigious place.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then finally he went to Yale for medical school.
Wow. So he really went to, all the top schools.
He did.
And, you think about all of that education, and then he goes into neurosurgery.
Right.
Which is, one of the most demanding specialties.
It is. It's incredibly demanding. The hours are long.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sleep deprivation. And the pressure, I mean, you're making life or death decisions on a regular basis.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
It's a lot to handle.
So how did he deal with all that pressure? I mean, did he ever talk about that in the book?
He did. Despite all of the demands and, the stress and everything, he really developed this patient-centered philosophy of care. He was a very compassionate person.
Okay. So even though he was dealing with all of this, stress and pressure, he was still able to, be there for his patients.
He was. He really believed that being a neurosurgeon wasn't just about the technical skill.
Okay.
He thought that by, operating on the brain, he was actually impacting a person's identity.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he didn't just see it as like a physical thing.
No, he saw it as like you're actually, changing someone's essence in a way.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective.
It is.
And it kind of goes back to, his interest in philosophy and literature and all that. So he talks about some specific cases in the book, right?
He does. He talks about a few cases that really illustrate, the emotional and ethical challenges of being a neurosurgeon.
So like what kind of cases?
Well, he talks about one case with a young mother who had a brain aneurysm.
Okay.
And, an aneurysm is basically a weakened blood vessel in the brain.
Okay.
And it can rupture.
And that's bad, obviously.
That's really bad. It can be fatal.
Wow.
And so he had to decide whether or not to operate.
Oh, wow.
And the surgery was incredibly risky.
Okay.
But it was also her only chance of survival.
Wow. So he really had a tough decision to make.
He did. And he also talks about another case with a patient who had brain cancer.
Oh, gosh.
And in that case, he had to, weigh the options between aggressive treatment, trying to fight the cancer.
Okay.
Versus, focusing on providing dignified end-of-life care.
Yeah. So he was really dealing with some, really heavy stuff.
He was. These weren't just medical decisions. They were ethical dilemmas.
Because you're dealing with people's lives.
Exactly.
And it's not just about the physical part of it. It's about, the emotional part of it and the spiritual part of it and all of that.
It's about the whole person.
Yeah. So this is all in the first part of the book, Imperfect Health I Begin.
Right.
And then the second part, Ceasing to Breathe, is where things really take a turn.
They do. It's a very different tone in the second part of the book.
So what happens?
Well, he's 36 years old.
Yep.
He's almost finished with his residency.
Wow. So he's almost done with all of his training.
He is. He's about to, start his career as a neurosurgeon. And then he starts experiencing these really bad back pain. And he's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So he goes to the doctor and he gets this devastating diagnosis, stage 4 lung cancer.
Wow.
Meaning that the cancer has already spread.
So it's already pretty advanced.
It is.
And he's a non-smoker, right?
He is. He never smoked.
So that makes it even more, unbelievable.
It does. It's just this, stark reminder that sometimes these things happen and we don't know why.
Life can be so unfair.
It can.
So, how did he take the news?
It was really hard for him. He talks about how it shattered his identity. He had spent his whole life, working towards becoming a neurosurgeon.
Right.
And now suddenly it was all gone.
Yeah.
He wasn't just Dr. Kalanithi anymore.
Right.
He was Paul the patient.
And he was facing his own mortality.
He was.
Yeah.
It was something that he had, thought about philosophically before.
Right, because of his interest in, existentialism and all that.
Exactly.
stuff.
But now he was actually experiencing it.
Yeah.
He was living it.
So he had to, come to terms with the fact that he wasn't going to be able to be a neurosurgeon anymore.
He did. And he also had to deal with, the fear and anxiety about his future.
Right.
And the impact this was going to have on his relationship with his wife, Lucy.
Yeah.
It was a really difficult time.
So what did he do? Did he just, give up?
No. He didn't give up. He started searching for new meaning.
Oh, okay.
If he wasn't going to be a surgeon, who was he?
Right.
What could he do at the time he had left?
That's a big question.
It is. It's a huge question.
Yeah.
And he really wrestled with it.
So did he find an answer?
Well, he did in a way. He actually decided to go back to neurosurgery.
Really?
Yeah, even though he was undergoing treatment for cancer.
That's amazing.
It is. It shows his dedication and his resilience.
So he was able to, perform surgeries even while he was sick?
He was. But eventually it became too much.
Oh.
And he had to make the difficult decision to leave surgery permanently.
Oh, gosh. That must have been really hard for him.
It was. It was a huge loss. But during that time, he turned to writing.
Oh, okay.
And that became his primary way of processing everything that he was going through.
So writing kind of became his new purpose.
In a way, yeah. It was a way for him to explore these big questions about life and death.
Yeah.
And to create something that would last beyond his lifetime.
That's beautiful. And he and Lucy, they decided to have a child during this time too, right?
They did. It was a really profound decision.
Yeah.
Knowing that his time was limited, they chose to bring their daughter, Caddy, into the world.
Wow.
And fatherhood brought him so much joy.
Yeah.
It gave him a new sense of purpose in his final months.
So it's kind of like a silver lining in all of this?
It was. It was.
So did he finish the book before he passed away?
He didn't. He was working on it, but he didn't get to finish it.
Oh.
But Lucy, she was amazing.
Okay.
He made sure that his manuscript was completed and published.
Wow. So the book that we're reading today is really a testament to both of them.
It is. It's a testament to their love and their courage and their commitment to sharing his story with the world.
Yeah. And his story has so much to teach us.
It does. One of the key takeaways for me is that the definition of a life well lived isn't about how long you live.
Right.
It's about how you live.
Exactly.
It's about the quality of your life.
Yeah.
The connections you make.
The impact you have on others.
Exactly. And he also talks about the fragility of our identities.
Okay.
You know how easily our sense of self can be shattered when we face major life changes.
Yeah.
And how important it is to be able to adapt and find new sources of meaning.
Right, because we're not always going to be who we thought we were going to be.
We're not. Life throws curveballs, and we have to be able to adjust.
And he also talks about the importance of compassion in medicine, right?
He does. He really emphasizes the need to see the patient as a whole person.
Okay.
Not just a set of symptoms or a diagnosis.
Right, because everyone has a story.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
And he really believed that doctors need to listen to those stories.
Yeah.
To understand their patients as human beings.
And I think that's something that we can all apply to our lives.
I agree. It's not just about doctors and patients.
Right.
It's about how we treat each other in general.
Yeah. We should all try to be more compassionate and understanding.